Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy here for the Daily Blob, where you say it's not whether or not you're paranoid, it's whether you're paranoid enough. Probably one of the greatest lines out of any movie ever. And I do believe it was out of a pretty shitty movie too. Anyways, I think this is an interesting story. So the big question I get from everybody is job. How do I get a job, right? Not how do I solve problems, not what stack should I build on, not how do I communicate with people to better understand and do troubleshooting and all that kind of stuff. It's job. Job, 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 job. Anyways, as I've been trying to explain, we are in a bit of a crappy economy. I call it an economic kerfuffle, right? Are we in a recession? Are we in a depression? What are we in? Who the hell knows? We are just in a kerfuffle. And so all these people are like, Eli, how do I get a job? And I just want to keep reiterating time and time again just how stupid the current job market is, so that maybe folks start thinking about how do they actually solve problems so that they can go out there and possibly find their own way to make ends meet using technology and such. So we talked about AT&T before. We talked about Stanky, CEO Stanky. Basically came out, I don't know, a few weeks ago at this point, and said that work from home is basically dead. Return to office is the way to go. And if you don't like it, leave. I guess you're gonna have to quit. Which again, I will remind you, if you quit, you do not get unemployment. Generally, you do not get unemployment insurance. So basically, what Stanky is trying to do is he's trying to make it so painful that employees quit, and then they don't have to pay for unemployment insurance and all of that type of thing. Which is just, I don't know. I guess that is the modern world right there. What becomes even interesting, you're like, well, that's bad. I mean, that's about as bad as it can get. And it's like, no. Have I told you it's gonna get worse? I feel like, where's my notes? Where are my notes? I have been telling you, this shit is gonna get a lot worse, right? If you think this is bad, don't worry. You will fondly remember these particular days, because AT&T is back in the news. And basically now it is not return to office or get fired. It is now they are eliminating numerous offices, right? Physical offices. You have to now find a way to get to the physical offices that are going to remain open, and you do not get help with relocation. Oh, and as I talk about this still isn't as bad as it's going to get. It's still going to get much worse. So yeah, this is a curious thing, and I think it's a harbinger, right? The reason I talk about this, for anybody that hasn't been here for a long time, is the whole idea of dominoes, right? So when the Great Recession happened, right, when Bear Stearns fell, my company, my MSP or whatever you want to call it, we were still doubling our workload every 60 to 90 days, right? I call it, we had the bottle rocket business trajectory where we went warp speed and then hit the sonic barrier and blah, right? And that was the thing, right? When Bear Stearns fell, we were fucking fine. We weren't just fine. I was working 12-hour days and hiring a new person every month. I mean, for a small company, that was a big deal, right? Anyways, we were just going. And so Bear Stearns fell. What the fuck? I didn't have any... nothing with Bear Stearns really affected me. Didn't do anything. And then after Bear Stearns fell, then there was a lot of stuff going on in the real estate market. And honestly, we owned our row house, and we weren't looking at real estate being an investment or anything like that. So I mean, it was kind of fucked up for some of our friends and that type of thing. But honestly, when real estate started going sideways, it didn't affect us. Right? We were still doubling every 60 to 90 days. But then it was like, then the contractors that supported flipping houses, they started to get hit. But we didn't have a lot of those folks as clients, so that didn't really matter to us. And then a few months later, then the people, again, the accountants and the lawyers and the support services for for those people, they started getting hit, and then we got dinged like a little bit, and then the next domino fell, and the next support people, and that was actually our customer base, like warehouses customers, those type of customers. So they started to get affected by the economy, and then when the next domino fell, it fell and squished us. Literally, again, real world. One of our best customers, I'd worked for them for years. They had done so much business with us, the whole 9 yards. And literally, my last phone call to them was where I said, "Look, you guys have a $1,500 bill with me. I just need to know whether you're gonna pay it. Like, if you're not gonna pay it, just fucking tell me so I can tell the accountant so they can figure out the accounting magic on that, so I don't have to pay taxes on something I didn't get, essentially, right?" They didn't even return the phone call, right? These are people, I knew their family, been to the house, been to the business, been to the parties, the whole 9 yards. They didn't even return the fucking phone call to just say they weren't gonna pay, right? That's what the Great Recession was like. And so why I'm talking about these things is we are seeing the dominoes fall. First comes the layoffs, right? then comes the quiet firing. Then comes the next thing. Then comes the next thing, and it gets rougher and rougher and rougher and rougher. And right, that's how this stuff goes. It's interesting, like with so many things, like with COVID. Even with COVID wasn't that long ago, but it starts getting mentally, it starts, the time period starts getting into compressed, right? COVID was basically a 2-year ongoing disaster, but it's very easy mentally to think of it like more of as like somehow like a month or something like that. And the important thing to understand here is when you're going through a disaster, to start looking for the signs so you kind of understand where you're at. I have no idea where we're at. This is gonna get worse because we have a crazy president. Don't get me wrong. During previous disasters, I disagree with the president. I will say during most of the disasters, I disagreed with the president. I didn't think they were cracked out on Diet Coke though. Anyways, so this is from AT&T. AT&T is directing more managers to relocate or face layoffs. So these are managers that have already gone back to work, already returned to office, and now their office is going away. Let's see here. Business Insider has learned that AT&T is consolidating 22 internal help desk centers into 6 locations. So 22 physical locations are going down to 6, and affected managers get 2 weeks to decide whether to move or lose their jobs and get severance. The consolidation of so-called centralized support desk workers who largely assist other AT&T employees follows a playbook the company has used repeatedly since 2023 as it upgrades its tech and cuts legacy costs. The spokesperson said the move is unrelated to Stankey's Take It or Leave It memo, which was his frank response to an internal survey that found employees reporting lower engagement at work. However, one AT&T manager told Business Insider that they understood the department's leadership was speeding up the timetable for the help desk consolidation because of the Stankey memo, instead of taking a couple of years to carry it out. So basically the idea here was they were probably going to be compressing their whole help desk system, right, over a few year time period, which is the nice, easy way to do it, right? The longer you have to do a migration, the better it is for everybody involved. But now they're accelerating it, and now you got to figure out what you're doing in 2 weeks. One of the managers, who is facing an out-of-state move hundreds of miles away, shared an email with Business Insider in which the company said they would be required to cover their own moving expenses. So the office that you're working at is going away. You're expected to move hundreds of miles, and they're not even helping with moving expenses. Spoiler alert, they're trying to get you to go away. We talked about this before. I talked about those with quiet firing. And this is where you have to be careful. is a lot of times they will try to make it so painful for you that because they want you to leave, and then if you don't leave after they've made it so painful for you, they're gonna fire you anyway. We actually have a family member that's going through this. Right, they worked for a company for a couple of decades, and they got a buyout offer. They got an early retire. They're way too fucking young to retire, but they got an early retirement offer, which is basically, here's a chunk of money, here's a severance package and health insurance for a little while. Take it or you can keep your job. The interesting thing is they went and they talked with people, right? Okay, well, this is my options. Let me go and talk with people that understand the company. And apparently this type of thing has been done in the company before. And what happens is anybody who doesn't take the buyout offer, 3 months later they get fired with no buyout offer. So this is something that you have to be careful about. When I talk about this stuff, people think I'm not empathetic. Eli, you're not empathetic. Man, I'm tired. I got my own shit to worry about. It's not that I'm not empathetic or whatever else. It's just like, you've got to take agency in your own life, right? There is this weird thing in the modern world where people's feelings supposedly matter more than reality. So it's like, oh, you're okay, right? They want to get patted on the head and all that kind of horse shit. The important thing I want you to be considering here is that you have to take agency, right? When you are in an employment position or whatever, right? These are two parties that have decided to work together. This whole idea that you're subservient and they're the authority, that's you, bucko. That's you. The reality is two people are part of this relationship, right? The boss has agency and you have agency. You have the agency to say, fuck this and leave, right? But for some reason, people don't think about it that way. I talk about this when I was going through interrogation training years ago. Right, so I was going through, it was a synops, the read technique for interview and interrogation. Anyways, so we go through interview training. It was like, okay, that's how you interview people, fine. Then you get to the interrogation, right? How do you interrogate people? So basically, all interrogation is trying to get information out of people who don't want to give it to you, right? That's what it is, right? So an interview process is where the people are relatively open, right? Maybe they want to hide a couple of things, and you have to ask some digging questions to try to figure out the answer, but more or less, they're trying to give you an answer. Whether or not they actually give you a good answer is a whole different story, right? The idea with interrogation is you're trying to get information out of people that they specifically do not want to hand over to you, right? But the problem is in the real world, right? We aren't all in that TV show 24, and you can't carry a Glock around and shoot people in the fucking kneecap when they don't answer your questions. Whether or not that actually works is an entirely different story. And so it was interesting, right? You're going through this class, and it's like, okay, so you have to interrogate people, right? You have to try to force people to give you information that they don't want to give you. But you can't shoot them in the kneecap. No shooting in kneecaps. So what do? So the interesting thing that you do is you have to make them very uncomfortable, right? You have to put them psychologically into the position they feel as uncomfortable as if they got shot in the kneecap without actually shooting them in the kneecap. So one of the things that you do is it's very curious, right? So especially if you're not a police officer, you're not military, you don't have legal jurisdiction in areas, people have to have an obvious way to leave the situation, or there will be under, was it illegal arrest or whatever, right? If you grab somebody and you don't let them to leave, you're committing a felony. So what you do is you have a door that's wide open, right? So you and the person that you're interrogating, and there's a door that's wide open. Like, well, if you're trying to get information out of them they don't want to give, and there's a door that's wide open, that at any point they can just stand up and walk the hell away, right? So here's what you do. You take the seat, and you put the back of it right in front of that wide open door. You then get your seat and you scoot up really close to them, right? And so it's curious, right? The lizard brain freaks the fuck out. A lot of people don't think about the lizard brain. We got the human brain and we got the lizard brain, right? The lizard brain is the thing that you can fucking manipulate. You can play that thing like a puppet, right? So what you do is you get really close to them. And that puts them under psychological distress, especially in the United States. Our space bubble is about 3 feet around us. We feel comfortable when people are at least 3 feet away. If you're in India, that's an entirely different story, but we're not in India, right? So when you get really close to somebody, right, they get physically uncomfortable. And so what happens is you get really close to them and the door is completely behind them, and then they forget, right? The lizard brain forgets that there's a wide open door behind them that they can walk out any period of time. And what happens is they're now confronted by the lizard brain freaking the fuck out because there's somebody in their face asking them questions in a kind of mean way. And you'd be amazed how many times people will give the information and you don't have to shoot them in the fucking kneecap. Anyways, this is one of the things I talk about in life in general. There is always a door. There is always a door. Because here's the thing. If you always know there's a door that you can walk through, then you don't get stressed. I can leave at any time. I can leave this job. I can leave this relationship. I can leave this church. I can leave this social group. It may be painful, right? You walk out the door and there are consequences to walking out the door. Don't get me wrong, but you can. And so when you're sitting there, somebody's in your face. Do I want to walk out, right? And I think that's one of the big things, issues that we get to with so many employees nowadays, is how we've psychologically set up these employment systems. We've made it so there's something that makes them, they don't feel like they can walk through that door. And then all of a sudden, right, you start getting lizard brains out of employees. And then there's a question, do you really want your employees to be all lizard brain? I don't. I would not want dozens of lizards working for me. But anyways, it's something to consider and to think about, right? You are not being forced to relocate. I want you to understand this. You are not being forced to relocate. You are being told, if you do not relocate, you will lose your job. Right? There is a fundamental difference in how you word that type of thing. And so that's where I get concerned with a lot of these folks, is basically like it's bad management. Like, what happens if you here's a serious question. What happens if you threaten people, but you're so bad dealing with humanity, the other people don't really understand the threat? Like, imagine you're a gangster. Right? You'll cap a motherfucker. You will cap a motherfucker. But you don't really want to cap a motherfucker, right? If you cap a motherfucker, then the police might get up on your ass and you might go to jail, and then you gotta wipe up all the blood. There's a whole bunch of stuff out there when you cap a motherfucker, right? So what if you're walking along the street and then some dumbass comes up to you and starts doing something, and you're like, motherfucker, you don't want to make me mad, and the person's like, nah, you're not gonna get mad with me. Motherfucker, you don't stand back. I'm gonna do something. Man, I thought we were friends. Like, what happens if you're trying to threaten the motherfucker? And I don't know. There's something about your presentation style. Have you ever thought about that? What if you're just like so gangsta with a face that everybody loves? Like everybody looks at that face and goes, oh, I like that guy. You're like, motherfucker, I'm a gangster. Oh, I know you're a I know you're a gangster, but come on now, everybody loves you. I think about how many motherfuckers you're gonna have to cap if nobody grasps that you're serious. There's a weird way to think about him. The babyface gangster. The gangster that nobody takes seriously. But it is curious, like with these managers and quiet firing or whatever. Like, what if you tried to quiet fire people and the employees literally think that you're giving them space so that they can shine? Oh, yeah, no. My boss is so amazing. Yeah. Yeah, I'm no longer part of any of the meetings anymore, so I can focus on my work. They stopped bugging me about these performance reviews and everything because they realize what a visionary I am. He's giving me all of this time to focus on the things that I really care about. That is how awesome of a boss I have. And then imagine the boss walking in every fucking day going, what's wrong with this fucking person? They don't go into meetings anymore. I barely fucking talk to them anymore. They're supposed to be gone by now. Oh, anyways, it's an amusing time period. To be clear, just to put it on the table, right? I wish we were in a different timeline. If I had the ability to go to a different timeline, I would. But you might as well get amusement out of this timeline while you can. So they're forcing people. So they're already returned to office, but they're forcing them to go to different offices, and they are not giving them moving expenses. They want you to quit. They want you to quit. Move. Maybe you should move and go into a hostel. I mean, that's one thing you can think about. You got a house, you got a family and all that kind of stuff here. So you can move and then you can just get a bed in a hostel or something. Maybe you can couch surf until they give you a better severance package. That's something you might be able to do. Let's see here. AT&T spokesperson said the relocations will help the company optimize its workflows. It reflects ongoing strategic shifts across our call center operations to co-locate similar work functions and improve efficiency, consistency, and teamwork, the spokesperson said. Curiously, company-wide, AT&T employed more than 160,000 workers at the start of 2023, according to its annual report. It started this year with 141,000. So basically in 2023 and 2024, it already dropped 19,000 employees. We do not know how many it's dropped so far this year, and it seems to be trying to drop a crap ton more. Stanky said in a January earnings call that the company expects to save $3 billion in running costs by further integrating artificial intelligence. So that is basically the phase of the story we are at with AT&T. AT&T is basically trying to shrink everything down, and they're trying to make it so goddamn painful you walk the hell out of the door. That is the world we're at, and it's gonna get much worse. This isn't even the start of the dip crappery. The dip crappery is coming a couple of months from now. So yeah, it'll be curious to see how this all works out. And then, as I say, how all these dominoes falling, right? When you have a layoff at one company, but everybody else is hiring, then you can just go from one company, go to the other company. But what happens when this company is laying off and this company is laying off and this company is laying off? What happens as the economy gets ever more uncertain? So companies that are willing to hire people still don't. I think about this with the dot-com bust. The most painful thing about the dot-com bust was how long it was until companies felt comfortable hiring technology professionals again, right? So I talk about this, right? During the dot-com boom, a lot of us got hired when we shouldn't have got hired, right? I was a 24-year-old flying around the country doing all this stuff, way the hell above my head, right? It was just fucking insane. And the reality is during the dot-com boom, many people were hired when they I don't want to say when they shouldn't have been hired. Basically, the best people were hired, but there weren't a lot of good people. Right? There's a difference between the best and actually good, right? When I talk about the MCSE had only been around for about 5 years, right? So, in 2000 when I get my MCSE, that whole certification had been around half a decade. And so you had so many businesses that needed to get wired, network connections and servers and print servers and email servers services and ISDN lines and all this kind of stuff just needed to be deployed basically overnight. So a lot of companies, in order to do these deployments, they hired the best they could get, not necessarily good, but the best that they could get. Some of them worked out well. A lot of them were an absolute crap show, wasted the company a lot of money and the whole nine yards. The issue is then once the dot-com bust happened, right, lots of people got laid off, jobs were taken away, the whole nine yards. What should have happened is in a rather short period of time, you should have gone into a recovery cycle where these companies basically start hiring technology professionals again. The issue that you ran into is that so many of the companies and so many of the CEOs and executives felt so burned. Right? They felt so used and manipulated and whatever else by the technology economy. They just didn't want to deal with us for a long time. Right? So that was the funny thing, right? Think about this. As a 24-year-old, I got this job flying all over the country, and basically I had my military experience. I had a criminal justice college degree, and I had finished an MCSE course, but it had only completed like 3 tests. Right? That was the kid that was given a direct line to the travel department, right? A couple of years later, right, I had my full MCSE, I had my Avaya training, I had my Cisco training, I had done these build-outs, I had done this work, I had done all of that, and I got offered a $9 an hour job at a help desk, right? Right, and that's the weird kind of thing that can happen, and so that's one of the things to be concerned about too for technology professionals. Is as we go through this cycle, there is going to be a time period. There's a time period where everybody's laying off and firing, and then there's a time period that's the plateau where everything's trying to stabilize. The issue that you run into is even once we get into that recovery territory, the lag of tech people actually being hired again might be a lot longer than you expect. So anyways, that's the stuff that I'm pondering. So what do you think about this? What do you think about when return to office isn't good enough to get enough employees to go the fuck away? What happens when companies start now basically eliminating offices just to make it ever more painful for employees so they go the fuck away? Right? What do you think about, employees that have been with the company, they've been doing the return to office, they've been doing the work, they're now told they have to relocate hundreds of miles on their own expense, and the reality is they could get laid off, in another 1 to 2 months. They could do that entire move and then get laid off 3 days later. What do you think about that particular situation? How low do you think this economy is gonna go? I think it's going to get pretty low. I think we can hit the floor. Anyways, put your thoughts down below. Give us a thumbs up, give us a thumbs down. Say I'm amazing, say I'm an idiot, as long as you say it down in the comment section. With that, see y'all later.